driving with my friend Pauline. Oh, this can't stop me falling down, down, down. I don't know where I'm going, but
Hello everyone, Tuesday Night Talk. I'm very glad to receive Michael Wookey. Hi Michael.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. So we're going to talk about your next album, True Love D-Day. That's a title, but maybe before talking about sound and this album, for the people who don't know you, could you give us some words about the style of music you are doing? I know this is in general a tough question to start.
First of all, the album, it's called True Love $Day. So it's like a dollar sign. Mm-hmm. And I think something that I think about, like with websites and stuff, is that the dollar sign is not always an accepted logo in titles. So it's a concern, and you've just raised it because you called it True Love D-Day, because I think the dollar sign may be replaced with a D sometimes. But I'm okay with that, I guess. The style, I don't know. Like you're right. It's the $1 million question, isn't it? It's a hard one. It's one that makes musicians panic. Very much a songwriter. It's usually these 3 minutes, 3-4 minutes. I feel like I've said everything I need to say, but then within that time, I guess it's like it has choruses and stuff. So I guess it's pop. I guess it's indie. It has some. It's often quite homemade. It's with these elements of. Using like special disintegrated instruments and things. So I don't know, maybe like pop music found in a fire or something. But and I like, in terms of artists, to kind of explain it. Maybe less now than like 10 years ago, but I still really love Tom Waits. And I think 10 years ago it was more like taking this element of smashing chains on a floor and singing with a slightly more broken voice. And now the thing that I maybe take from Tom Waits is more the recording style. So hearing the room, hearing the environment. And then, something like Sparkle Horse. In using these like disintegrated, these are old, I think he called it squeaky old organs. I'm still using these, things that should have been thrown in the trash a long time ago, but one man's trash is another man's treasure, I guess. And then, I always forget to name like the classics, and I think it's really important. I still listen to the Beatles all the time, and I listen to Radiohead a lot, and I'm not gonna deny that. And it's almost like a dirty word, like for a filmmaker to say you're influenced by David Lynch.
Sure, there is no reason to deny, and Tom Waits and Sparkle Horse comes to mind very quickly, but in your own way, and like you digest this very deeply. And the last album appeared to me to be maybe a little more serene, but really great, and with a touch of irony, like on the songs like "Show Me What You Got," and there is a the darkness is still there, but its place has changed. It's really a great album.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a bit more fun, because I feel okay now. I have less. I don't know. Like you say, the darkness is still there, but it has a different place. It's been digested. It's been spat out in a different way, but it was also made in a different way. Like I decided for the first time to take a producer this time, someone who I trust very deeply, a friend from we met when I was maybe 15. He's a very, very good friend, and he still makes music. He still makes music himself. Peter Lyons, an English guy, and yeah, we began the album making it in his studio together, which is just a very small one-room studio, and we finished the album some at distance. But because I trust him so much, I found myself saying yes more than no, which happens if you choose your team correctly, I guess.
So, he made the mix almost on his own, or and you were working remotely. What I find striking in the production is, for example, the drum doesn't have much room and sounds a little dry. Like on Get Gone, it's almost like it is a trip hop bit, but played. Tell me if I'm wrong, and that kind of production is quite original right now. So who came to that choice? It was him who suggested to choose this path.
It was both of us. It was interesting because I just mentioned recording in his studio, which was a very small room. It's a shipping container, so just a long metal room, but treated. So there was no reverb, and we recorded these drums. He's a very good drummer.
You mean you think I need a professional drummer? Like I'm not good enough?
And so very dry in the sound. And then there was the question of should we add some kind of very special reverb to this, like spring reverb or something, or make it sound like it was in a room. And in the end we loved this very, very dry sound. I mean, then you have to really work with the EQ and the compression to make it very even and stuff. But you never really hear drums like here, It's except maybe in some I want to say, for me, like the ultimate like dry drumming, like very like 70s drumming that you have on like some, the kind of Gainsbourg drum sound, and then later Beck, like borrowed by Beck, this on the album Sea Change especially, very dry, but still you can hear that it has room to breathe in a bigger space. Even if it's recorded with one like very close microphones, it still has I think it's still in a reasonable sized room. Whereas this room that we recorded was maybe 2 meters wide, so it was very, very special, yeah.
Here that there are overheads, it sounds logical not to try to find some artificial reverb, like because it should be recorded. It's and the album in itself sounds with a lot of hair. And he made also the mastering.
No, the mastering was Valgeir Sigurdsson in Iceland. But interesting thing about the mastering, I sent it to Valgeir and he sent it back and it wasn't so different. When I sent like previous albums to him, very striking difference between the mix and the master. But this one just like removed, just kind of tamed the top end a little bit. Barely even touched the bass, and really not so much work in EQ, and very little work in like stereo image. And he said it sounded kind of analog enough to him. The mix was very strong, so this is to me like says good things about the mix of Peter Lyons, which was so solid. And
how do you know him? You have been for a time you've been living into Iceland.
Yes, with wasn't living in Iceland, but I was in a relationship with someone from the Hidden Tracks, and we spent 6 years, like we were going back and forth to Iceland all the time, and I mixed a documentary for him about his label, and originally it was like in exchange for the mix he did a master for me, and now I just love his work. So yeah, it's just so important, especially with a master. It's such a technical job. It's so important to trust the person you're working with.
You don't want several months or maybe sometimes several years to be destroyed by someone at the end of a sound chain. Indeed.
Yeah.
Through the years, what I found to be very striking in your sound in general is maybe most striking thing, two things: the use of toys, of sound toys, and keyboards. So I have several questions about that. Regarding your experience, do the toys require a special way of recording them, or is it kind of casual?
Okay, well, the toys. It started. I guess when I was maybe 20 years old, I bought a keyboard on eBay. It's called an SK1, beautiful 80s sampling toy, and I bought, like, it's called a circuit bent version, so it's like a modified version of this keyboard, and I ordered it, and I waited for 3 weeks, and it didn't come, and I already had a non-modified SK1 which I was using, so because I was so impatient, I modified it myself, and that's really what started this, like, toy obsession, like with the electronic toys. So if I'm recording like a Casio, for example, sometimes I can use the headphone output or the jack output, and it has a special sound, but the best for me is really using the speaker. So sometimes you have the sound of the keys, and you have this, speaker is wonderful because it just makes everything compact. And so that's how usually with the speaker for anything. And then I find it just takes less space in the mix, and it depends. Like if I'm using a toy to make like the bass, then I'll use like a DI box, which often requires some modification. But if I'm just using it for like a small keyboard part, it's actually really nice to have the speaker. And then the acoustic stuff, I record those with all the care that I would, drums or whatever. It's like, even if it's a toy piano, I'll still take the time to do it in stereo, and really so many harmonics on a toy piano. It's like a harp, actually. You really have to think about all these things,
And it's what kind of microphone are you using when, for example, you record speakers?
Speakers I would use. Usually, I would just use a static microphone, like a condenser. So I use, a Neumann. My go-to microphone is a U87, the classic. It changed my life because it was just everything became easier. It was like, even if with like maybe a lesser microphone, I was using a Rode before, like the cheaper but decent Australian microphone. With the Rode, I found it was more important to have. The voice is a different thing, but let's talk about, for example, the cello. With the Rode, I had to be very careful. So the cello, and I had to be like, okay, so not too near the hole, and like really the angle was right. And then with the U87, I received it, and a week later I recorded a string quartet, and I just found just basically anywhere near the cello, and it sounded wonderful. So it it just has a very, I don't know if it's a neutral sound. It has a really nice medium, but it's a microphone that I really like. But then for recording something like a toy piano, to attenuate, tame, I guess, the highs, I would often use a ribbon microphone or a pair of ribbon microphones.
Okay, very very interesting. Very interesting. You seem to have a special relationship with keyboards. In my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but can you talk to us about this? It's because I was wondering also, when you write a song, do you start with keyboards or guitars?
Oh, it depends. I mean, first of all, for writing a song, there's no formula. It can be just voice sometimes, and sometimes guitar, sometimes keyboards. But I don't know. I love these keyboards, all these keyboards I have, because they just fall into my hands over the years. I'm very easy to buy gifts for, you know. At like Christmas, there's always someone who's like, "Oh, I found this wild keyboard for you at like a, you know, like in the trash somewhere or on the street in Paris." And they just all they all sound very different. I mean, at one time I owned 3 pianos, upright pianos, and they were, even though it's the same instrument 3 times, like one of them was a Steinway, a very beautiful sounding piano. One of them was a piano from a boat, so it had this slightly out of tune, beautiful sound. And then one of them was a Shallon. It was the piano that they used for the piano they used for Hey Jude, and those in the video of Hey Jude. But it has like a special. You press a pedal, and like a thing comes down between the keys and the between the hammers and the strings, and it's like a kind of material with like metal on the end, these little like curtains, and it would sound almost like a like a harpsichord or something. It's just, you know, so even with pianos, they sound so different, and without even talking about the difference between a piano and a mellotron, for example, or because I'm using a lot of old. Lucky that I own a real mellotron, which is an incredibly inspiring instrument, and also an Optigan, which is it's a sampler. It uses film discs, and everything just sounds like Disney when you play this. It sounds really scratchy like a vinyl, and just, you know, very very inspiring instrument.
So we understand through this conversation that you are also sound engineer, and you made production for a lot of people in different, also in for a documentary. And why did you feel the need this time to work with someone?
Well, first, I am a sound engineer, but I never said I was a good one. And I just, from producing other people, sometimes I have the luxury of just producing, and so having someone do the engineering for me, and I realized I really like that. So I could, with Peter Lyons, it's someone I trust so much. He's a very good engineer and a very good producer, very open. So it was nice to have him take care of the technical side, but I don't want to say that that was all I wanted from him, and that's not everything he gave me. He was very, very creative, very open to ideas, you know, bringing new ideas to the songs. And he just, I feel like, especially with recording vocals, he made me feel very confident. It was special, this album. There were at least a few songs where I had never sung the song before arriving in the studio. It was just something that existed kind of vaguely, like I would sing it to myself, you know, but I deliberately arrived in the studio with this idea of having singing the song for the first time. So it's very spontaneous, and I wanted it to be like a diary, so you hear how I felt that day. And Peter was very just ready. He was like, okay, the microphone's there, and he's got this wonderful English way about him, if he's not happy with it, he won't say I'm not happy. He'll say, are you happy with that? do you think you can do better? And I'm like, okay, maybe. And I love his music and I love his voice, and so there was an element of wanting to impress him,
But some sort of British pragmatism. Let's do it again. Let's something like that. Okay, there is some sort of final question that I call the magic question. Could you tell us what are your first memories linked to music in your recollection when you were a child? Or
actually, I do have a story which sounds fake. So the first time we heard music, we didn't really have music in the house, but we had music in the car. And my dad was a big fan of this old radio station, and they played songs from the 60s. The songs that I grew up with, because my father had older sisters, they were fans of things that copied the Beatles. So things like The Searchers and Herman's Hermits, and to an extent the Bee Gees and stuff, and which didn't copy the Beatles, but yes. So he wanted to listen to this kind of music in the car, and I hated it for a long time, and I built and this is a true story, and I realize this sounds
okay, it's okay.
It's true. I built a radio broadcasting box which would broadcast with batteries a few meters, so I could talk into my box and it would come through the radio. And I realized that I could use it in the car to block his radio station. We'd be listening to this music, and then I turn it on and it would be like, and of course he knew it was coming from me, but I think he was maybe impressed by this 11-year-old who built this circuit. And so but now I'd love to find that box again. Maybe it exists in my parents' house or something. But I think the sound of this interference on the radio is something that I really love in music. So. Also the songs. I mean, now I listen to The Searchers, and I saw them live actually, and of course the Bee Gees is still a classic that I still very much listen to. So that's one of my earliest memories.
So you have been tweaking electronics for a very long time. This is a very beautiful story. That's a very beautiful story.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, really, thank you very much. So when your album is going to be released?
I think, later this year. I think October. That's the plan. Yes.
Great. Everyone, thank you for watching as always, and we will see you on this channel very soon.
What are you trying to tell me? I need a drummer. I could use a drummer. I'm not drumming on my record sucks. Or what are you saying?
Forget it, man. Forget it.